There are a lot of guitar players out there that just don't think they're creative. They're learning their scales and their shapes and their patterns. When they jump to solo, it just sounds... Some people think the problem is like talent or just not being a creative person, but that's not the case. When we're in that place, we start to think that theory is what we need, or more information. Let's just say, like, all right, it's not really working in this position of the pentatonic. Let me get the next position. Let me get the next position of the pentatonic. Will Dorian help? Nope, certainly won't. So what is it that we need to do? It's not about information. It is about being fluent in what you already know. Creativity flows when we get rid of overwhelm, and that overwhelm comes from trying to utilize too much information. If you don't know, my name is Ryan Gaughan. I have been helping guitar players for 20 years really bridge the gap between their creative ideas and what they're able to play, becoming fully fretboard fluent. If you would, hit the subscribe and bell notification to get more videos on how to make your guitar playing better. So when we're stuck in this place, your brain is sort of like trying to juggle what scale and what position and what chord that these notes work over, etc. And when it's trying to do that all at the same time, we're sort of in memorization mode. We're definitely not in creative mode, and all of our bandwidth is sort of sitting in that space and not being creative. If just that position of the minor pentatonic just doesn't sound good and it still sounds boring, we'll just break it down to the two strings of the minor pentatonic and say, okay, can I just use those and try to develop something? I recommend trying to do a motif or something that is a little bit repeatable and a little bit familiar that gets us out of random land pretty quickly, right? So if I do... already that. Great. I can now focus on bringing a little tension and resolution, right? Ending on that flat 3 and then resolving it. The rhythm of it. If I'm starting right on beat 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. I'm starting a little after the strongest beat for the following without losing the motif, because that motif stays the same. Those two licks are almost identical, and I'm making a couple of rhythmic choices, even how I'm restraining some of those notes. Really like resolving it lower in volume. So when we're taking all of these things into consideration, these are the techniques we use to be creative. And that's where my brain is, and that's where my bandwidth is, because I'm not sitting there thinking like, oh God, okay, what am I doing? I don't even know what to do with any of these notes. How could I be creative with that? And then again, more positions, or Dorian and Phrygian dominant and chord substitution. That's all just going to be completely crazy if we cannot create music with those 4 notes. And I think something that's really wonderful is once we can create that kind of music with just those 4 notes, those 2 strings of this position, then I can add those 2 strings and get it all, and then add those 2 strings, and now I have the full first position of the pentatonic. I can take that up into the second position of the pentatonic and third position. I can now learn how it's musically interacting with the chord progression, because some of the notes are going to sound much different. Attention. It's going to sound great if I have my A or my A7 if I'm in a blues, right? Versus that bending up if I have my 4 chord, or if it's just sort of like an A minor to a G. Those are going to be very, very different. Do I know that linguistically so that I can make the creative changes? I'm taking that into Dorian in my modes, my natural 6. Do I want to hit that over that 4 chord to really brighten it up and really accentuate that chord? Do that all over the fretboard. Make really, really cool choices. Like in a blues, if I get to that 5 chord, I could do a half diminished scale that brings up, slides up to my 6 to get that in my You know, my 4 chord back to the 1. If I am doing this as I'm learning theory and I'm tapping into the creative part every step of the way, I'm never going to be overwhelmed by the next jump in theory. Don't forget, memorization and learning are 2 different cognitive experiences. God, I wish that wasn't the word that I fumbled up, huh? And if I'm just stuck in memorization mode, that's where overwhelm gets. But if I am using this creatively, which means I'm making my own choices rhythmically, note duration, dynamic, whatever it is, those are your creative choices. If I'm doing that, I'm learning and I'm no longer memorizing. Therefore, we learn, maybe have to like memorize a position or 2, and then we take that memorization and then add our creativity. Boom, now we're learning, no overwhelm, and we're going to take that all the way to the most advanced theory. Just like learning a language, when you're learning it sort of on paper, you understand how the language works, but you sound really stiff, you don't sound like a native. You can find someone who does sound like a native and very quickly get you to speak the way that you want to and fluently, but break it down to the most basic. So, you know, if you feel like you're kind of getting closer and you know your shapes and your theory, even some modes, but everything so far that you've been playing, just it doesn't sound like a language. I do have a free training in the description. It's 3 steps to full fretboard fluency. I start with the very basic theory and just go through this a little bit more. I'll give you a couple of ideas to really put under your finger so you're able to understand the concept of breaking out of memorizing a scale and learning how to speak with it. If you do want to, this is very much what I specialize in. And it's my Fretboard Fluency Mentorship Program. Takes you exactly through all of the steps to make you fully fretboard fluent, but the purpose is so that you can play exactly what you creatively hear in your head and bridge the gap between those creative ideas and what is coming out through your hands and through the guitar. If you are interested, you can book a free consultation call. That link is also in the description. I appreciate you staying till the end, and I will see you in the next video.